Welcome back to another fantasy fight. This time Gerry Cooney takes on Tommy Morrison. Two big bangers that should provide a lot of action. First, let's look at Gerry Cooney. Cooney was from New York. He took the country by storm. He was on the cover of about every boxing magazine and Sports Illustrated that you could pick up. Very popular. He was 28-3 over his career. He was 6'6", 225. He fought Larry Holmes and lost in 1982 for the WBC championship. And then he fought Michael Spinks for the linear title in 1987 and was knocked out in that fight as well. He went through boxing with one of the best left hooks the heavyweight division's ever seen. His opponent is going to be Tommy Morrison from Oklahoma. Tommy had somewhat of a tragic ending to his life, but while he was in his prime, he was the real deal. 48-3-1. He won the WBO title in 1993 over George Foreman. He was 6'2", 226, handsome, popular with the ladies, and unfortunately passed away of AIDS late in his career. Should be a good fight. Okay, now we're taking a look at Gerry Cooney against Ron Lyle, one of the most feared boxers of the 1970s. The year's 1980. They're on Long Island, New York. Cooney's 23-0 coming into the fight, and he has a following that few fighters have ever had. He's like a cult figure. As I said earlier, he was like Tyson before Tyson. And the thing that drew people to him was his knockout power. Now, as you watch him, notice the left hand. He's got a really strong jab, and probably second to Joe Frazier, one of the best left hooks in heavyweight history. He's left-hand dominant. There's no doubt about that. He's a converted southpaw. But he is going to take on Lyle, who's considered a really strong fighter still at this time. If you're not familiar with Lyle, he fought Ali in 1975 for the title, lost an 11th round knockout. He put George Foreman on the canvas twice in their 1976 fight, in which he lost in a 5th round decision. He got a late start in boxing because of his stay in prison. Matter of fact, that's where he took up boxing. He was feared. He was a tough fighter. Cooney stepping in. They know it's going to be a fierce battle because Lyle did not back down from anybody and could take a punch. Cooney's untested, trying to move up the rankings. And the crowd at this time is yelling, "Cooney, Cooney," just echoing through it. He has such a strong following. And as you watch this, notice as Cooney comes in, he's a good body puncher. He gets Lyle on the ropes, and he's going to knock him out with a body punch. And the fight's over in the first round. Just incredible action. The next fight we're going to take a look at is Cooney against Ken Norton. And I think most of you are familiar with Ken Norton's legacy. 3 fights with Ali. One of the top contenders all the way through the 70s. The year is 1980 again. And this is first round action. And once again, notice the left-hand dominance of Gerry Cooney. Doesn't throw the right very many times. Really, the first time he hits Ken Norton is hurt. Gets him on the ropes, gets him trapped, and he forces Ken Norton and Ron Lyle to go into retirement following this fight. Okay, now we're taking a look at Michael Spinks and Gerry Cooney in their 1987 title fight. Michael Spinks had just won the title. He'd defeated Larry Holmes twice. Larry Holmes was universally recognized as a heavyweight champion, but he only had the IBF title. Spinks decided to defend his title against Gerry Cooney and was stripped of the title, but most people recognized him still as the world champion. This fight is going to show you some of the problems that Gerry Cooney had against speed and quickness, his inability to tie an opponent up. Spinks is not known as a big banger. He's known as a boxer. And you can see he's just pummeling Gerry Cooney. And Gerry is a great offensive fighter, but defensively he has troubles. Now remember, he was not in his prime. This was 5 years after the Holmes fight. He was coming back, rather inactive. But whether he's in his prime or not, you can see he has trouble tying an opponent up. And he's going to lose this fight, his second of his career. As I said, Michael Spinks was 30-0 coming into this fight. He retains his title. Next up, we're going to watch Cooney take on George Foreman in 1990. And this is Cooney's last fight. This fight was highly publicized. Two big bangers. Foreman comes in at 64-2 record. Gerry Cooney was 28-2. And both were known as knockout artists. Cooney, once again, as soon as he gets hurt, has no ability to tie his opponent up. Foreman just wails on him, dominates the fight, and knocks him out in just the second round. This ends Gerry Cooney's career. He finishes 28-3. Foreman goes on and wins the title in 1994 against Michael Moore. So I wanted to show you these two fights to show you what Gerry Cooney did when he got hurt, because a lot of times he was just an offensive fighter. Now we're going to take a look at the 1982 matchup between Gerry Cooney and Larry Holmes. This was probably the biggest fight of the 1980s and the biggest fight of Larry Holmes' career. No doubt, Gerry Cooney's career. It was a great fight. Cooney did well. Had a few low blows that hurt him on the scoring, or the scoring would have been even. This is an indication of Cooney's ability to box, because he was a good boxer. This was the first time he'd ever been in the 11th, 12th, and 13th round in his career. He's going to go down to defeat in the 13th round by a knockout. But this was by far Cooney's best effort also. In listening to Cooney in an interview the other day on YouTube, I heard him talking about that he was very disappointed that there wasn't a rematch because the fight was so close. Gerry Cooney's career is going to go straight downhill after this. He's very inactive because of his alcohol abuse. And he ends up losing his last two fights of his career, which we're going to look at both of them against George Foreman and Michael Spinks. We're going to look at the comparison chart. Not a whole lot of differences between the two fighters. I give Morrison the advantage in hand speed. Boxing ability similar, KO power, both of them are very strong. I give Cooney the size advantage. Defense, endurance, and adaptability, pretty similar. Neither were great defensive fighters, and neither one of them had great endurance. And I don't think either one of them really adapted that well to their opponent. They were just so overpowering. Now, looking at Tommy Morrison, in the second chart, you can see I've given him an advantage in strength. Foot speed was very similar. Chin, neither had great chins. They weren't bad, but they weren't great. Jab, definite advantage goes to Cooney. Cuts, body attack, very similar. No advantage to either fighter. It's going to be a great fight. Hard one to call. As I render my decision in the Tommy Morrison-Gerry Cooney fight, please subscribe and hit the like button. Love to hear your comments on who you would think would win. This is a tough one to call. And as we look at Gerry Cooney bombing people out, you need to understand that he took the heavyweight division by storm, much like Mike Tyson would a few years later. In the early 1980s, Gerry Cooney was the hottest ticket in town. As you watch these films here, you notice what a left hand he has. He's left hand dominant. Morrison, on the other hand, could take you out with either hand. This was going to be an offensive fight. Neither one of them really backed off a whole lot. And I'll have to say, whoever hit first, I think, is going to win the fight. But you have to look at this logically. One of the weaknesses of Gerry Cooney was his inability to tie his opponents up when he was hurt. I think this would be the difference in the fight, because I think at some point Tommy Morrison would hurt him. And I think when he did hurt him, it would end in a knockout. I thought Tommy Morrison's recovery power was a little bit better than Gerry, so I'm going to give him a slight edge in this fight. I'm going to go with Morrison in a 5th round knockout. Now let's look at the brackets. Remember, we have 32 fighters in our Fantasy Fights tournament. Morrison will advance against Cooney, and he's going to fight the winner of the Sonny Liston Rocky Marciano fight that's already up on YouTube. Check that out, see who wins. Cooney will fight the loser of that fight.